Ever since the ISSL's opening season in 2010, the All-Star Game has functioned as the league's biggest and most anticipated event of every action-packed softball season. What started out as a random and controversial idea by ISSL founder Patrick Adelman, the All-Star Game has become the staple of the league and has been the stage for the fiercest competition and the highest level of play among the ISSL's legendary players. Out of the 8 games played so far, some of them have lived up to the hype and have gone down as some of the greatest games and the greatest moments in ISSL history. Others, on the other hand, have not. Let's revisit all 8 games here in the history of the All-Star Game.
At first, it seemed like a strange idea, having a game with voting, where people would be excluded naturally. But in the end, most of the non-regulars were unavailable to play anyway, since Patrick Adelman scheduled the game for a Monday night. Eventually, only 16 players were available, so the team split 8 versus 8, which is the only time this has ever happened. Voting did determine the captain matchup, which would be Jeff Friedlander, the East, versus Tom Selenow, the West. The teams initially looked uneven, with the West having Joey Mataro, Deepak McCleary, and Eddie Fuentes, who were the 3 big home run hitters at Scenic 2. But come game time, things would look a little different.
Before the game, actually, Jeff Friedlander, the captain, had me in left field and Evan at third base. And I talked to Evan and we were like, let's switch that. So I played third instead, and he played left, and that certainly worked out.
Before the game started, even at the field, most of the players' attitudes were still pretty casual about the game. But then something changed.
So Patrick Adelman, during the warm-up, came up to me and said, "You want to sing the national anthem?" And I was like, "Sure." And when I did that, that seemed to just change the whole dynamic of the game.
Initially, the idea was to have the game last 14 innings. However, early in the game, the captains agreed to extend it to 18 innings. Since there were only 8 defenders, the 8th defender either played right field or catcher and switched whenever needed. The game finally began, and in the top of the first inning, starting pitcher Jonathan Cohen for the East was able to limit the West to just a Joey Mataro solo home run. But in the bottom of the inning, after 3 straight singles by David Selliver, Joseph Keller, and Jeff Friedlander, Evan Childs stepped up to the plate and hit a grand slam over the left field fence. Childs was not finished. He added another grand slam just a few innings later, and a 3-run home run even later.
I don't think I've ever properly thanked Alex for those 3 meatballs he threw right in my wheelhouse. 2 grand slams. It never happened before. It'll never happen again.
The East had a big lead, but then Joey Mataro started easily chipping home run after home run with just the 200-foot fence in left field. The West fought to take a 14-13 lead. Then there was a standoff for a few innings, but that did not appease the rec department. The park supervisor came over and shut the game down until we could find a wood bat. So the game went into delay for about a half hour while Tom Selenow went to get a wood bat. This stoppage of play resulted in the captains agreeing to reduce the innings back to 14. During the break, the East took their team photos, and a 4-on-4 football game broke out in the outfield, led by Deepak McCleary and Joey Mataro. Once the game restarted, the captains tried to make an agreement to not hit balls over the fence. The home team took the lead with 3 runs on balls in play. Later, Jeff Friedlander hit a solo home run to the chagrin of the other team. Near the end of the game, the lights would turn off at Scenic 2, but the game would continue with the lights across the field from Scenic 1. The score was 20-19 home team going to the top of the 13th, the penultimate inning. The West loaded the bases with nobody out for their power hitter, Joey Mataro. He lifted a fly ball to deep left field, which Evan Childs had to go back to the wall for.
I just remember Joey had hit like 3 or 4 home runs. I just played it as deep as I could. Just used whatever room I could to get back and catch the ball, and then I had to get in as quick as possible, bases loaded.
Evan robbed the grand slam, then threw it in to hold it to only 1 run, and the West would not score another run in the inning, sending the game to the bottom of the inning, tied. the East set up runners on the corners with 1 out for Jonathan Cohen. He hit a ground ball to second baseman Eddie Fuentes, who threw home to catcher Akiyoshi Shimizu to tag the runner out at the plate. However, he then threw the ball to third baseman trying to get the runner there, and it got away, and the go-ahead run scored on the error. So the East took a 1-run lead into the top of the last. The West managed to get 1 runner on base with 2 outs for Ian Bernstein. On deck was Joey Mataro, and Ian popped one up behind the left side of the infield. Jeff Friedlander called everyone off and made the catch to end the game 1 batter short of Joey Mataro. Patrick Adelman ran over from first base and started an on-field celebration at the end of the first All-Star game. For the second All-Star game, it was decided that the captain matchup would be Jeff Friedlander and Patrick Adelman versus Tom Selenow and Ben Fraternali. From this All-Star game forward, it was decided that regulation would be 15 innings, and the games would be played at Scenic Field 1 from here on out. Jeff and Patty won the coin toss, but immediately went on to make some questionable picks. The first one being Max Cohen, then Mikey Mataro, then Joseph Keller, while Ben and Tom selected Manny Figueroa, Joey Mataro, and Peter Tallarico.
When you make the picks that they made, especially the first one, how can you argue that that doesn't in some way come across as not taking the game seriously?
That was the biggest game. That was the biggest game of your life. The team didn't suck. Max Cohen's a good player.
Are you kidding?
You were the worst player on that team.
To make matters worse, they would place Max Cohen at third base, while putting Joseph Keller and Mikey Mataro in the outfield, who have not played in the outfield almost all season. After a scoreless top of the first, Ben and Tom's team would immediately test those defenders in the bottom of the inning. Max Cohen immediately booted several ground balls, leading to several runs. Ben and Tom's top 3 picks, Manny, Joey, and Tallarico, easily found gaps in the defense. With reduced motivation, other issues began to persist for the road team. Midway through the game, Alex Zucchini would hit a pop-up that would be dropped on the infield. However, he did not run to first, and he was thrown out anyway. Mikey Mataro was also accused of not hustling by the captains.
The fact that you think to yourself, wow, if I get picked on a bad team, I'm not going to try. Isn't that a bad attitude?
Sure.
So you have a bad attitude.
The quality of the game was not very high either. Almost all of the players on both teams committed at least 1 error, and there were multiple pitching changes for the road team. A couple innings into the game, Mike Fitch showed up despite being injured. The teams agreed to let him be the umpire. However, more issues occurred due to this. Spectator Javier Anderson was yelling incorrect number of outs throughout the whole game, and that at one point created confusion during a play on the field, where a runner from third ran thinking there was 2 outs and was doubled off. Mike Fitch then insisted the road team retake the field. Late in the game, trailing by a lot, the road team did begin to rally, led mostly by Deepak McCleary. It is believed that the road team was assessed 2 extra runs by accident in the middle of the game. However, the rally would end 4 runs short as Mikey Mataro flew out to deep right and was caught by right fielder Julian Saliani, and there was no on-field celebration for this game.
It was really disappointing, really a disappointment. The fact that we had such a great All-Star game the first year, and the fact that this is what followed it up, where captains didn't take it seriously, that's really a shame.
For the third All-Star game, things would be different. Joey Mataro and Deepak McCleary would give it their all to beat Ben and Tom's team. This game had the greatest lead-in of any of the All-Star games, with the most anticipation for the draft and the highest level of play in the regular season games preceding it. This would be the first year where the second and third pick link would be instituted into the draft. In a surprising move, Joey and Deepak would pick Joseph Keller with their first pick, trying to solidify their infield. Ben and Tom would respond by picking Manny Figueroa and the fundamentally sound Steve Becker. However, at the end of the draft, Both sides were left with weaknesses at multiple positions. Mikey Mataro would play third base for Ben and Tom's road team, and Deepak McCleary would have to play shortstop for his own team, while putting Matt Anzano in left field. Joey also placed himself in center field despite having a back injury, and had Mike Fitch be the starting pitcher. Joey and Deepak decided their lineup and positions through their practices they held the week before.
Our team practiced 3 times that week. It was probably the most fun I ever had.
On game day, it was raining hard midday. It cleared up in time for the game, but it went on and off. This game had the most spectators of any other ISSL game ever played, with several parents and ISSL players who were not voted into the game in attendance. The Galano family sponsored an umpire for the game, getting Rec Department regular Ronald Havranek to umpire from the pitcher's mound, and in full umpire attire. The offense would be prevalent at the beginning of the game, as the road team started with Freddie Figueroa, Tom Selenow, and Manny Figueroa, with 3 leadoff singles, scoring the first run of the game. That brought up power hitter Steve Becker. However, he grounded it right to third baseman Joseph Keller, who turned to double play. Mikey Mataro then hit a fly ball to shallow right, but Joseph Keller was there in an overshift to end the top of the first inning. In the bottom of the first inning, Mike Fitch would double and then show his base running skills, as he advanced to third on a foul out by Joseph Keller, tagging up. Joey, with 2 outs, then hit a pop-up into shallow left that dropped in for a game-tying single. The home team would then take the lead the next inning, with Mike Fitch hitting an RBI triple into the right field corner. After the first 2 innings, the defenses took control, as no runs were scored through the next several innings, with the teams primarily hitting flyouts and not targeting the infield on either side.
I feel it's a little closer than I thought it would be. There's not any home run or extra base hits going on, but I think it's going to come. The young guys have played quite well, and the fielding has been spectacular.
The road team was eventually able to tie the game on a Deepak McCleary error on a ground ball. However, in the bottom of that inning, the home team would score 2 to take a 4-2 lead. One rally by the road team was killed when Luke Selenow was hit by a batted ball with 2 outs in between second and third base on a ball that shortstop Deepak McCleary most likely would not have been able to field. The score was still 4-2 home team after 12 innings, an unbelievably low-scoring game. However, the road team would rally for 2 runs in the top of the 13th inning. However, the home team immediately responded again in the bottom of the inning. Alex Zucchini hit a sac fly to shallow left that Joseph Keller was able to score on. The home team would tack on another run to take a 6-4 lead after 13. The road team went down in the top of the 14th, and then their defense started to break down. Third baseman Mikey Mataro, who had gone by unnoticed most of the game in the infield, finally started to get targeted by the home team. He made multiple errors in the bottom of the 14th, including one off of Jaleel Hemans, who had earlier struck out. The home team increased their lead to 9-4 as the rain started falling again, and as the game would head to the top of the 15th inning. Park supervisor Larry Coleman gave the road team a pep talk while the home team met on the mound. The meat of the order was up, and Manny Figueroa led off with a single. Steve Becker followed with another. Then Mikey Mataro grounded to second, but Joey Galano booted it, loading the bases. Ben Fraternali followed with a single, and Evan Childs followed that with a single. And 3 runs had scored in the inning when Michael Rosenberg came to the plate. Michael Rosenberg grounded right to Joseph Keller, who was playing as the pitcher's helper just to the right side of the pitcher. He threw to first for the first out of the inning, but that sent the tying run to second in Evan Childs. Luke Selenow stepped up, and after a battle with Fitch, he popped up for the second out, bringing it all up to Freddie Figueroa in what was perhaps the longest at-bat in ISSL history. Of many foul balls and many taken pitches, Freddie finally lined one over Deepak McCleary's head into left center field. That scored Ben and moved Evan to third, who was considering scoring. Joey Mataro in the outfield fielded the ball, but then dropped it, giving Evan another chance. However, he stayed at third base with 2 outs.
So I didn't know Joey had dropped the ball, but I knew we had our big gun Tom coming up, and I just had to make sure Tom got to the plate.
I've never been more nervous in my life to hit.
Freddie Figueroa moved up to second base. That passed the baton off to Tom Selenow, who on the very first pitch blooped one into right.
When I was rounding first, I was just so jacked up that I instinctually just slid into second base and tore up my knee. Just because I couldn't believe the stakes, and I couldn't believe that I was able to get that hit and we were able to get those runs.
The ball fell well in front of Alex Sakini, who was playing deep. That scored Evan Childs and Freddie Figueroa easily to give the lead to the road team with 2 outs. Manny Figueroa followed up with a double, and then Joseph Keller asked the captains to pitch. That did not help the situation. Steve Becker was up next, and he immediately targeted Mike Fitch, who was now at third base. He ripped one down the line for another base hit. Mikey Mataro was next, and he grounded to first baseman Eddie Fuentes, who booted the ball, scoring another run. Ben Fraternali was up next. He blooped a single into center field. Evan Childs followed. He hit a fly ball to left down the line that Matt Anzano dropped. And then Michael Rosenberg finally grounded out to Keller at the mound for the final out, but not before 10 runs had scored. In the bottom of the inning, Larry Coleman gave the same pep talk to the home team. Keller led off the bottom of the 15th and reached on a throwing error by shortstop Steve Becker. Joey Mataro then drove him in with a single. Then Deepak McCleary and Alex Sakini both flew out. And even though Joey Galano singled, Eddie Fuentes stepped up and popped out to pitcher Ben Fraternali for the final out of the All-Star game.
To be honest, I don't know that I'll ever be a part of something like that in a softball field again.
It got away from us, and we can never have it back.
Some of the members of the home team did not stay for the group picture, but contrary to some people's beliefs, they all stayed to shake hands. Joseph Keller and Eddie Fuentes were called on to take on Ben and Tom in the 4th All-Star game. They were confident to set up a good defense and were proud to select Eddie Heiss first. Due to Ben and Tom picking Manny and Joey with their 2nd and 3rd pick, many saw them as the favorites. However, after a scoreless top of the 1st inning, Keller and Fuentes' team took it to them, scoring 4 runs in the bottom of the 1st inning, batting around. And this time, there would be no comeback, as the home team would continue to add on. Before it was all said and done, the road team had gone through pitchers Ben Fraternali, Tom Selenow, Nick Leonardi, and Joey Mataro. The entire lineup contributed to the blowout, with every player contributing at least 2 hits. Joseph Keller led the way, with 8, while first pick Eddie Heiss had 6. Despite the power on the road team, they had difficulty scoring runs, and they partially blamed the pitcher. There were complaints that the home team's pitcher, Evan Childs, was throwing a very low percentage of strikes in the zone.
I just had to pitch my game and do what I could for my team. You know, in a big moment like that, you can't worry about every comment, so I just had to do what I was doing.
Keller and Fuentes were throwing out wild cards in the outfield, with Alex Sakini in left field, Edao Short in right field, and Mikey Mataro in center field, who had primarily played first base. Eventually, the game turned to chaos. Michael Saad would double over Edao Short's head, but go on to be thrown out at third base. Then, Jack Ravello would be called out twice for breaking rules on the field by umpire Larry Coleman. Larry also made another controversial call earlier in the game. Power hitter Nick Leonardi would go 0-for in the game. He primarily batted left-handed, which resulted all in groundouts to second base. He would be up in the top of the 15th inning as the last out. This time, batting right-handed, he grounded back to second baseman Joey Galano who threw on to first baseman Eddie Fuentes for the final out. At the time, the 17-7 final was the biggest margin of difference ever in the All-Star game. Losing captain Ben Fraternali was not happy with the game and took to Facebook to complain afterwards. Even though the final score wasn't really close, it was a great game for me. 8 hits, no errors, but also I felt like the whole dynamic of the league changed, as in maybe all the things I was talking about, maybe all my strategies for offense, defense, and all kinds of stuff, maybe turns out that was all right. Manny Figueroa and Joey Galano would take on Keller and Fuentes in the 5th All-Star game. For the first time since 2010, the captains agreed to team names, with Manny and Galano taking the name American League and Keller Fuentes the National League. Manny and Galano's American League tended to pick varsity baseball players in their high picks, like Jeff Friedlander, Cormac Quinn, and Michael Saad. And they got off to a good start in the game. For the second year in a row, Larry Coleman would be the umpire. Joey Galano pitched a scoreless top of the first inning, and then in the bottom of the inning, Michael Saad and Cormac Quinn led off with singles. Then, Manny Figueroa singled to load the bases. However, the throw went home to catcher Eddie Fuentes, who then threw to first to try to pick off Manny Figueroa. Michael Saad easily scored the run on the throw. Then, the 4-hitter Jeff Friedlander hit a fly ball to center field that was caught by Joey Mataro. Cormac Quinn tagged up, but was thrown out at home plate by Joey Mataro and tagged by Eddie Fuentes. In the top of the second inning, number 8 hitter Eddie Fuentes grounded into what seemed to be the final out. However, second baseman Michael Leggero dropped the throw from shortstop Luke Selenow, allowing Mike Pavlo to reach. The next batter, Mike Fitch, would double to tie the game. 1 inning later, in the bottom of the third, the American League's top of the order would come up big again. They scored 3 runs against the National League's pitcher Tom Selenow, with the biggest hit being a Michael Saad double over Joey Mataro's head in center field.
I feel like our team has done great so far, and I feel like, if we keep getting base hits, we can win this.
After 3, the American League led 4-1, but that did not deter the National League. Mike Pavlo led off with a ground ball to short that Luke Selenow threw away. Clark Pocher Jr. grounded one through the wide-open left side, with Cormac Quinn playing down the line. Alex Zucchini ripped a single down the left field line to load the bases, and Eddie Fuentes did the exact same thing to drive in a run. Then Mike Fitch singled again to cut it to 1 run. That brought up Joseph Keller, who hit a fly ball to right field that got over Michael Saad's head to give the National League the lead. Joey Mataro added a sac fly to make it 6-4 National League at the end of 4. Then, National League pitcher Tom Selenow started to settle in, but the top of the order for the American League was still a thorn in his side. They set up a 2-out rally in the bottom of the 5th to load the bases for Joey Galano. He stepped up to the plate in what would be his most pivotal at-bat in his ISSL career, with the game possibly on the line here at this early point in just the 5th inning. He hit a hard line drive right towards the shortstop position, near Mike Pavlo. Mike Pavlo came up to me later in the game and said that he didn't like where I had positioned him for Joey Galano at shortstop, so he just took matters into his own hands and went where he wanted. As it turned out, Pavlo was in the exact right spot to catch the line drive to end the threat.
When people come here from 2 minutes away, I come from an hour, so that says it all.
The opportunity got away from the American League, and then Tom Selenow completely settled in, but was criticized for throwing a high number of pitches outside the strike zone. The National League added 2 runs in the top of the 7th and 1 in the top of the 9th. The American League then went on to ground into 3 double plays, one by Patrick Adelman, one by Michael Leggero, and one by Luke Selenow. They mustered 1 run back in the bottom of the 12th on a pair of throwing errors by Evan Childs. But then, Evan Childs hit a 2-out, 2-run bloop single to right field in the top of the 14th, and Joey Mataro followed with another bloop RBI single to make the score 12-5. The defense, meanwhile, was still stifling the American League's offense. The top of the order had even gone cold after starting 9 for 15.
It did alright. We could have done better. Everyone could have done a little better, so it is what it is.
And with 2 outs in the bottom of the 15th, Luke Selenow would line what looked like would be a base hit into right field. But fittingly, Alex Cicchini fired it from right field to first baseman Clark Pocha Jr. to end the game on a defensive highlight. Despite having only 1 hit, Joseph Keller led the game with 4 runs batted in, yet he committed his first ever error in the All-Star game. Mikey Mataro went 3 for 7 in the losing effort. With a final score of 12-5, this was the lowest scoring All-Star game ever, with only 17 total runs.
I've won every All-Star game. I'm 5-0.
After the game, I'm still stunned by the national anthem. I heard a guy singing contra alto, contra soprano,
Counter tenor.
contra tenor,
Counter
counter
tenor.
tenor.
Alex, you just won the All-Star game. What are you going to do now?
Probably go home.
Evan Childs and Mikey Mataro were called on to captain against Keller and Fuentes. Evan Childs was notorious for being 5-0 in All-Star games, and Keller's motto was to make him 5-1. Both sets of captains were criticized for making a couple questionable picks, including Mikey and Evan's first pick, Jeff Friedlander, over Joey Mataro, as well as picking Michael Leggero over Ben Fraternali near the end of the draft. Freddie Figueroa had not played a single regular season game in 2015, but he made it into the game as a substitute in order to balance the competition. Keller and Fuentes were criticized for picking Mike Russo and Michael Rosenberg too high.
I don't know what Keller and Fuentes were thinking here.
But when the game started, those criticisms were silenced. Since it rained for most of the day leading up to the game, Park Supervisor Larry Coleman would not allow the game to be played at Scenic Hudson Park, so the game was moved to Memorial, and all All-Star games from then on out would be played at Memorial. The game started off right away with Keller singling off of pitcher Tom Selenow, then Mike Russo followed with a double. Keller was then caught in a rundown between third and home, but managed to score under catcher Michael Leggero's tag. Joey Mataro followed with an RBI double, and by the time the top of the first inning was over, the road team had scored 3 runs. The onslaught continued, as the road team scored 2 runs in the third and 3 runs in the fourth. However, the home team got a run on a Clark Pocha Jr. single in the bottom of the 4th inning, even though Freddie Figueroa was caught on the base paths later that play. For the first time since 2010, there was no umpire for the game, so the players self-officiated. There was one rocks, paper, scissors decision between Joseph Keller and Evan Childs that Keller won. Number 2 hitter Mike Russo for the road team batted lefty the entire game, which was a surprising move since he had primarily batted right-handed in his ISSL career. But the top of the order was just too strong for any pitcher that got in their way.
Our 2, 3, and 4 were 12 for 12 in our first 4 at-bats.
In fact, the home team tried 4 different pitchers: Tom Selenow, Mike Fitch, Evan Childs, and Michael Leggero, but none of them were able to stop this offense. In just his 6th at-bat, Mike Russo tripled to pick up the first ever All-Star game cycle. Also at the bottom of the order, light hitters Douglas Geller and Michael Rosenberg combined to go 9 for 18, with Geller picking up 2 doubles. Meanwhile, the home team the entire way through only picked up 14 hits, all singles, with Mikey Mataro going hitless. They also committed 9 errors, the highest amount for any team since the 2011 All-Star game. By the time it was over, Mike Russo had scored 7 runs and drove in 6. Joey Mataro scored 6 times and drove in 6. Cormac Quinn drove in 5, while Keller scored 5. Eddie Fuentes, however, went hitless for the road team, despite what ended up being a 27-1 final score. This set the record for most runs scored by the winning team, fewest runs scored by the losing team, and biggest run differential, and the road team tied the low record of 3 errors in a game, and most likely set the record with 36 hits. Clark Pocha Jr. was the final out, flying out to right fielder Alex Zucchini. The road team agreed to celebrate on the field anyway, despite the blowout. Despite most of the players in the game believing the road team had the advantage, nobody expected the one-sided contest it was.
It was surprising, I didn't expect it, but it can happen to anyone.
ISSL great Joey Mataro would take on Joseph Keller and Eddie Fuentes. Alex Zucchini was supposed to be his co-captain, but he was absent for the draft. Joey Mataro put a lot of confidence on his second pick, Nick Panjwani, and he would come up big in the game. For the first time ever, Keller and Fuentes picked a team entirely of all-star veterans until Ryan Kelly was substituted in. Eddie Fuentes would try to repeat his one-run complete game effort from the previous year. But in the top of the first inning, Nick Panjwani would double over Evan Childs' head and left and would score later in the inning. In the bottom of the first, 5 straight singles opened it up for the home teams off of pitcher Michael Leggero, as they took a 3-1 lead after 1. Nick Panjwani and Cormac Quinn would both single in the top of the third, leading to their second run. And in the 5th inning, the two of them would double back-to-back to tie the game. However, Panjwani would struggle in left field, misplaying 2 fly balls by Mikey Mataro and Ben Fraternali. And in the bottom of the 6th, one of those led to an RBI double by Eddie Fuentes, blasted well over his head to give the home team the lead back. But in the top of the 8th, with 2 outs, Alex Zucchini hit a hard line drive off of Luke Selenow's glove for a game-tying single, and second baseman George Semenis made a running catch to take away an RBI single from Joseph Keller in the bottom of the inning. And then, in the top of the 9th, the road team began their big rally. Plamen Nadenoff, the last pick of the draft, led off with a single, and then Michael Saad picked up his first hit of the game. An error by Evan Childs moved them up a base, and Nick Panjwani hit a sac fly. Cormac Quinn hit an RBI triple, and Joey Mataro hit an RBI single, making the score 7-4. The home team began to rally in the bottom of the inning, but then number 5 hitter Tom Selenow grounded into a double play, hit right at Cormac Quinn, who went to the bag and fired across. In the 10th inning, the road team added to their lead. Plamen Nadenoff hit an RBI double down the left field line, scoring Michael Leggero from first. Michael Saad then followed with a ground ball to shortstop Luke Selenow, who threw to third baseman Keller to try to tag out Plamen, but Keller dropped the ball. Panjwani followed with a 2-run single, making the score 10-4. In the bottom of the 10th inning, Ben Fraternali was on third with 1 out, but Ryan Kelly and Eddie Fuentes both popped up to end the inning. Time was running out for the home team, but Tom Selenow led off the bottom of the 12th with a single. Then Luke and Ben followed suit to load the bases with nobody out. Ryan Kelly flied out to shallow right for the first out, and then Eddie Fuentes popped up high to shortstop Michael Saad. But Ben Fraternali lost count of the outs and ran too far. However, Michael Saad threw home instead, thinking that Tom Selenow was tagging up. This gave a new life to the inning, and Joseph Keller would step up with bases loaded and 2 outs, down by 6. In a moment that resembled Galano's plate appearance in the 5th All-Star game, Keller battled but grounded to shortstop Michael Saad, but Saad booted the ball and everybody was safe. And that kept the inning alive and made the score 10-5. That brought up Evan Childs, who tripled into the right center field gap, driving in 3 runs and cutting the deficit to 10-8. Mikey Mataro singled to right field, making it 10-9, before Clark Pocha Jr. grounded out to end the inning. But the home team got back to work in the bottom of the 13th with 2 outs and 2 on for Eddie Fuentes. He singled to right center field off Michael Leggero, bringing in Ben as the tying run. After a Keller single, the baton was in Evan Childs' hands yet again. Joey Mataro decided to come in and pitch, sending Michael Saad to center field, George Semetis to shortstop, and Michael Leggero to second base.
Joey came into the game with his mantra like he's unhittable. It's freaking softball. I just had to get a hit off of him.
Evan Childs ripped it through the right side, scoring 2 runs and giving the home team the lead, 12-10. The road team went down in order with the bottom of their lineup in the top of the 14th, and the home team went down as well in the bottom of the inning, bringing it all up to the 15th inning. Plowman Nadenoff needed something to start the inning, and he singled up the middle to start the inning. Saad flew out to left, but then Nick Panjwani tripled to right center field. Cormac Quinn then singled in the tying run with 1 out. Joey Mataro, looking to do something big, hit a lazy fly out to right field. And then, after Eddie Heiss got his first hit of the game, George Semetis grounded into a force out to end the inning tied. Joey Mataro stayed in to pitch the bottom of the 15th, trying to force extra innings for the first time in the All-Star game. But with 2 outs, Eddie Fuentes hit a bloop single that fell in front of the new center fielder Michael Saad. Joseph Keller then stepped up and hit a ground ball between first and second that Eddie Heiss missed, but Michael Leggero was able to pick up. But with no one covering first, Keller just beat Leggero to the first base bag for a base hit, and the baton was passed once again to Evan Childs.
I just had to hit it on the ground. I couldn't fly out in that situation, and thankfully it worked out and I got to first base.
Childs targeted the new shortstop, George Semetis, who booted the ball and then continued to try to throw to first, but threw it away, scoring Eddie Fuentes with the walk-off run. Had Joey Mataro stayed in center field, perhaps all 3 of these plays would have been made for the final out of the inning. Instead, it is the first walk-off in ISSL All-Star Game history, as well as the biggest come-from-behind win ever in the All-Star Game, a deficit of 6 runs. The captains would reshuffle for the 8th All-Star Game. Joseph Keller and Mikey Mataro would take on Eddie Fuentes and Joey Mataro. With Keller and Mikey winning the coin toss, Joey and Eddie decided to take Evan Childs with their first pick over Cormac Quinn and Nick Panjwani. This was solely Joey's decision, but despite Eddie not agreeing with it, he was not upset.
Joey was a very good co-captain.
While Keller and Mikey's team had solid positions for all the players, Joey and Eddie's team had more difficulty. The issue got worse when Joey Mataro decided to pitch instead of play the outfield. Much to the chagrin of the rest of the team, Joey felt he would be more useful as the pitcher.
I do think Joey's a good pitcher. I have a lot of confidence in him. Every time he pitches on the mound, like I know he's got those good pitches. He's got those he throws like a cut a little bit. It's like a little fork ball, I think.
But as a result, he had to put some players into weird positions. Matt Spencer at shortstop, Tom Selenow at third base, and Nick Leonardi in left field. Keller and Mikey's road team would jump on these positions quickly, as Clark Pocha Jr. grounded to third baseman Tom Selenow, who booted it for a 2-run error.
Oh yeah, it was me and Joey's idea to put Tom in third base. I was a little bit disappointed, but I didn't want to ruin the confidence or bring the team down.
The road team put up 3 runs in the first inning, looking like a possible repeat of the Season 6 All-Star Game. In the bottom of the inning, the road team turned to a player that had not pitched in an All-Star Game since 2013.
Sometimes when you're throwing it, you can just feel it coming off your hands just right, just shutting them down. Felt good, felt really good.
Eddie Fuentes, Tom Gambardella, and Michael Leggero all singled to left field to start the bottom of the second inning, setting up a prime opportunity. George Semetis would pop out to second baseman Mike Fitch for the first out, and then Matt Spencer hit a fly ball into left center field that was caught by Cormac Quinn, and he doubled off Tom Gambardella at second to end the inning. In the top of the fourth inning, Mike Fitch hit an RBI single and Joseph Keller hit a 2-run double to increase the lead to 6-0. And in the fifth, Clark Pocha Jr. added an RBI single and Ben Fraternali a 2-run double, made it 9-0. The home team scored their first run in the bottom of the fifth when Matthew Spencer tripled and Evan Childs hit a sac fly to right field that Nick Panjwani dropped. Tom Selenow came in to pitch for the sixth inning as Joey Mataro returned to center field and Nick Leonardi moved to third base, but they lost the momentum immediately. Michael Leggero dropped 2 throws on back-to-back plays at first base, allowing Keller and Panjwani to reach. Then with 2 on and 2 outs, Luke Selenow popped a ball up near the pitcher's mound that Tom Selenow could not reach, and it went for an infield single. And then Ben Fraternali was up next and hit an infield single to third baseman Nick Leonardi, driving in another run. In the top of the seventh, Cormac Quinn hit a 2-out RBI triple, but was thrown out at the plate, but the lead was increased to 12-1 after 7 innings. The home team would begin to rally in the bottom of the eighth, as the road team committed 4 errors, leading to 3 runs. In the bottom of the ninth, Nick Leonardi blasted a 2-run home run way over left fielder Cormac Quinn, estimated at 275 feet, but the bottom of the order was not able to contribute, combining to go 3 for 21. They went down in order in the bottom of the 10th. In the bottom of the 11th, Tom Selenow and Nick Leonardi got back-to-back 1-out singles, but then Joey Mataro flew out to right fielder Nick Panjwani, and Nick Leonardi was doubled off first. Eddie Fuentes hit an RBI single his next at-bat, but the inning would end with only 1 run scored, making the lead 12-5. The bottom of the order went down in the 12th again, but in the 13th, Eddie Fuentes hit a 2-run home run to right center field, cutting the lead to 12-9. The road team's offense had gone quiet since the 7th inning, but with 2 outs in the top of the 14th, Mike Fitch singled to right field. Joseph Keller followed with a double to right field, and Nick Panjwani ripped a 2-run single to right field. Cormac Quinn then tripled to right field, and Mikey Mataro doubled to left field to increase the lead to 16-9 that put the game out of reach. And Eddie Fuentes, for the second time, became the final out in the bottom of the 15th, flying out to Cormac Quinn in shallow left, ending the 8th All-Star Game. Players from the home team continued to complain about their captain's decisions after the game, and Joey Mataro complained about their efforts on Facebook.
These are the 8 All-Star games that have been played. And the question remains every year, will there be another All-Star game? Well, whether or not one happens, one thing is for certain. If it does happen, no one will soon forget it. Thank you for joining us here on the history of the All-Star Game.